Joe, it was announced this week that the college football playoff has come up with a new format of 5 automatic bids to conference champions, 4 obviously being in the Power 4 and the other being the highest group of 5, which I thought the wording on this was very weird. They actually contradict themselves in their format because they say the 5 highest ranked conference champs, and then they said the 7 highest ranked at large bids, which they didn't really say a Power 4. So they never really made a decision on the Pac-2. That format never came out.
Wait, so the Pac-12 is not, no matter what, is not eligible to be considered a conference because they don't have enough members. So they're automatically removed from the equation, no matter if they made a decision on it.
It's not in there.
It's an indirect understanding that they're not eligible. I believe that's a separate guideline and ruling. So just to clarify that.
Well, even for an at-large bid?
Yeah, because they only have 2 members right now. They are not. They
can't get an at-large bid?
No, they can't. No matter what, because they don't have enough teams.
They can't get in the playoffs no matter what.
No, they can get into the playoffs.
Sorry.
Yes, they can get in through an at-large bid, but they cannot qualify for a conference winning qualifier.
Either way, the wording was very confusing, but now we have some understanding of what that is. Joe, I kick it over to you first. What do you think about the 5-7 format? What do you think about the automatic qualifiers? What do you think of this ruling?
Yeah, I'm not really surprised by this at all. I think that this is something that was inevitable and it was coming. I think that this is better for the whole playoff itself, that we're going with the 5, and then we're going to have 7 at-large teams that are going to be competing. Those 7 teams probably going to be a lot of SEC and Big Ten teams, and that is what is going to improve the product of the quality that we're going to be watching, is more Big Ten and SEC teams that are going to be participating in this. I think, though, the one piece that really catches my eye, I really don't love how the G5 is going to get as much representation as they're going to get. I think it's going to be difficult for them to get a bye in this situation, but for them to get the automatic qualifier, I think that it's just so rare that we're going to have a team that's competitive enough coming from the G5, especially in the modern era of college football, that is going to be competitive enough to compete with any of the teams in the field. We're never going to get back to that Cincinnati team that made it to the playoff, because that was pre-transfer portal madness, pre-NIL madness. Now, anytime a team has a good roster, it gets pulled apart. We are going to get more teams like Liberty that get smoked when they play Oregon.
I have made my bones about that. I 1,000% agree with you. I don't think they deserve to be in. So let me echo what you just said. I'm 1,000% with you on, I don't think a group of 5 teams should have an automatic bid whatsoever unless they're good enough and it's deemed worthy enough that they are good enough to be in there, aka Boise State that year that they beat Oklahoma so many years ago. I think that team could have had a very good you could have made a decision that maybe they could have been on a team that could have made a little bit of a run. Joe, you know what my biggest complaint in all of this playoff expansion is?
What?
Automatic qualifiers. Can I tell you why? We're going to have a Big 12 champion this year that's going to be 10-2. And then we're going to have a team in the SEC and likely in the Big 10 that won't have an automatic qualifier that will curb stomp the Big 12 champion. So let me paint you a scenario very quickly. Let's say Georgia and Texas play in the SEC championship game this year, a rematch. And let's just say they split, okay? Let's just say Georgia loses at Texas but wins in the SEC championship game. Well, Texas doesn't have an automatic qualifier. Let's say Oregon, Ohio State play each other in the Big Ten in the Big Ten title game, okay? Oregon loses. They don't get an automatic qualifier. But you know who will have an automatic qualifier in a first-round bye? Let's just say Utah wins the Big 12. I absolutely loathe, automatic qualifiers. Joe, they are going to be a top 4 seed. I do not believe that you can quantify especially in a conference that is not going to be any good, that they should have a first round bye. How can you do that? Let me give you an example. There's a very strong possibility, that Utah plays 2 ranked opponents this year. Oregon might play 2 ranked opponents in back-to-back weeks going into the Big Ten. They might play 5 ranked opponents this year. So it's not even remotely close to the same of what they've done. It is a mass. So, Joe, let me give you – I finally found an argument and a take that can stop you from the automatic qualifier. You ready? You just said that you don't like the G5 having an automatic qualifier, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
What's the difference in the Big 12 and a champion from the Big 12 or the ACC or for any conference for that matter, okay, if we know that they're not good enough?
It's the same debate and conversation that we've always had when there was a 4-team playoff, and it's the conversation on how much do we value the fact that a team won their conference. Plain and simple, it's important.
But it wasn't an automatic qualifier if you won.
I know. Well, it wasn't an automatic qualifier, but in principle, it's the same debate that we're having, just like with this past year that we had with Florida State winning their conference. Do they deserve to get in over other teams just because
TCU is laughing over here?
They didn't win their conference, and they got in. The point I'm trying to get here is I don't think that it's bad to value winning your conference. That is an important part of college football, is winning your conference. There's 12 teams now. This isn't a small playoff field where we could end up having a messy situation like we see in the NFL all the time with teams with losing records that are getting into the playoffs. That obviously won't have a
scenario.
That's obviously not going to happen here, but there has to be some value and criteria on what proves the best teams are. More often than not, a team that wins their conference is going to be one of at least the top 5 or 6 teams in the country. Very rarely will.
Okay, to your point, can Kansas State beat Oregon, Texas, Ole Miss on a neutral field right now?
I have to see them play. I can't say with absolute certainty there.
Well, we do way too early. Let's do this way too early. Can Kansas State beat any one of those teams I just mentioned
I think that they can play competitively. I think that Utah could play competitively against those teams. I just want a
yes or no answer. Can they?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, let me rephrase. Is there a strong possibility that they can beat them? No. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, we can't make these decisions based on strong possibilities because that's an objective or a subjective conversation. That is completely opinion-based if we think certain teams could easily beat other teams. It's the whole point of why we do the show, why we talk about the sport so much, is because there isn't really much certainty. We think certain teams are – we said that there was absolute certainty that Georgia was going to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game.
No, we didn't. No, we did not. I said it was a 3-point game. Stop that now. Stop with your lies.
We still both picked Georgia, and most people on this planet picked Georgia. Forget the scoring. We still said Georgia will beat Alabama. That was the wording that was said on this show.
But you know what Alabama wasn't?
What?
They're not a team in the Big 12 named Utah. They had Nick Saban. It's a completely different scenario and situation. That's an SEC team, and you're making my point here. You're 1,000% making my point. Georgia, okay, to this example, if Utah goes 10-2, 9-3, and wins their conference, they're not going to be better than Georgia, and you know that.
It is highly unlikely that a conference winner will have 3 losses. I will stand on the table for that. I think there is.
Kansas State literally did it a year and a half ago.
They had 2 losses.
A 10-2 team.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. My whole point here is that a team that wins their conference has proven and done enough throughout the course of the season to prove that they're worthy of being a top 6 team. If you're in the top six discussion, you should get priority over the teams that did not win their conference.
Joe, they're not, but that's not the point here. They get a first round bye. Let me give you an example.
Wait. That's not true. They do not get, not every single conference winner gets a first round bye. That's not true.
Yeah.
Wait.
What are
That's
you
not
talking
true.
about here?
Not every single conference winner gets a 12-team a bye.
Your highest 4 conference championship winners.
I'm pulling up.
Yeah, pull it up. See what happens.
4 teams get a bye. Okay.
Yeah.
That
Conference
is not
champions.
But that's not a guarantee that all
it is a guarantee. They just guaranteed it.
There's 5 teams that are automatically qualified.
Joe, then what is the automatic qualifier then? If they're not going to be a top 4 team, then what is an automatic qualifier? They're not going to put a conference champion at 7.
Yes, obviously. But what I'm saying is that there's 5 automatic qualifiers. Not all 5 of them get a bye. Not all 5 of those teams get a bye.
No, the group of 5 team is the only team that doesn't get the bye.
So theoretically, if one of those teams that wins their conference is so shit, they won't get a bye. They would get pushed out by the other automatic qualifier.
Semantics here, because
I'm not.
Joe, you know good and goddamn well that there's not going to be a Big 12 team ranked lower than the highest group of 5 champion.
But that's my whole point, is that there is such a small possibility that we're not going to have a team that wins their conference that isn't going to be worthy of being in the conversation.
Texas goes 11-1 and Utah's a 10-2 team, and you know from what you've seen, Texas is 11-1. And hold on, goddammit, and it's Utah has no business being a top 4 ranked team. Automatic qualifiers can take a dog shit because they're not worth a damn. You're in a sport where recruiting matters and teams are built off of recruiting. You know, I know, my Meemaw knows, everybody knows that automatic qualifiers are dog shit.
You have to win the games that you play. It's the same thing that we did 2 years ago when we talked about Alabama and why they didn't deserve to get in because they didn't have enough wins. There is no shot in hell with the current format of the SEC and the Big Ten, with the amount of teams that are now playing it and the amount of games in conference that they're going to play, that will have more than one team go undefeated or have go undefeated heading into the championship game. That is very unlikely. More likely than not, the team that loses the conference championship game. Let me finish. It is more likely than not that the teams that don't win their conference championship games and lose and get into the playoff are going to have 2 losses.
Alabama and Kansas State played in the bowl game that year, the Big 12 champion, and Alabama clapped those cheeks by 40. So the year that you're talking about, the Big 12 champion that would have had an automatic qualifier.
I'm not saying that they're comparable teams. I'm saying that you have to win the games on the field to get into this.
We literally just saw what would happen.
It's not a beauty pageant. It's the same thing as the Florida State conversation that we had a million years ago.
You're making it a beauty pageant. Hold on. Yes, you are. You make it. You know what you do? You give participation trophies to teams that have no business being in a top 4 scenario.
Win your conference. Win your conference if you want the bye.
What's tougher, winning the SEC or the Big 12?
Win your conference. That's not the conversation.
Can you just, for once in your godforsaken life, tell me?
Obviously, the SEC or whatever you said.
Answer me this question. What is tougher, winning the Big 10 or the Big 12?
Obviously, the Big 10.
Okay, is it tougher to get to those championship games than it is what it would be in the Big 12? It's never
obviously harder.
It's not equal, though. Their teams are not on the same playing field. Let me give an example. You like to bring up the NFL a lot, right?
Yeah.
But the NFL goes to other divisions a lot of times. You play more division or non-division games or the same amount of division games that you do non-division games. So you can have a team like my team, the Saints, that goes to Seattle and San Fran Okay, then comes home, plays a conference game or division game. Then they go to Green Bay the next week. So every time y'all come up with these NFL solutions saying, well, the NFL does this, the NFL does that, it's never the same. It's not, Joe. There is no way in godforsaken hell that we can come to a situation where the suits in this room are coming up and saying, you know what? You know what would be cool? If everybody got an automatic qualifier for a conference champ.
But the problem is that remove the automatic qualifiers. How do we create these rankings? We're going to value teams winning their conferences when we create these rankings. The rankings determine the seedings, and as it's always been in the history of the college football playoff ranking, the teams that have won their conferences have gotten a boost.
What they're going to do, what they're doing.
What do you mean misunderstanding what they're doing? They've always done this. The teams that have won their conferences have always gotten a boost. It's why Georgia ended up at 6. They lost their conference. They got moved down to 6.
Lost the conference and didn't move. It was never an automatic qualifier. Again, we are going to be in
It was an automatic qualifier because there were 4 teams and you had to qualify to be one of those 4 teams. It's not literally by the verbiage an automatic qualifier, but the debate was the 4 teams that qualified to get in.
No way, Jose. You could lose your conference championship and get in. We literally had a national champion 2 years ago get in and not win their conference.
We have to include this because then there would be an imbalanced representation by certain conferences because certain committee members are going to have biases based on the conferences of the teams that they play in. We had a Pac-12 team that made it this year that just whooped the ass of a team that is now on its way to the SEC.
They won their conference championship game.
Washington won their conference championship game.
They deserve to be there.
More often than not, and you did this the whole year. You're one of these people the whole year discounted everything that Washington did because they were in the Pac-12.
Did I ever
finish the season strong?
Hold on. Did I ever say that they didn't deserve to be in the playoff when they were undefeated? Did I not come out here and eat my words?
You did at the very end of the year. You eventually agreed, but it took them winning their conference and going undefeated.
I thought that they ultimately weren't going to lose. They proved me wrong. My whole thought about this was.
But that's my whole point, though, is that the general biases of certain people, and I'm not saying you're biased. You are. We both are biased. Everybody has their own biases that occur in their decision making. What I'm trying to get at, though, is that if you don't have these qualifiers, then we're going to end up with mostly Big Ten and SEC teams that are being represented. That's just what it's going to eventually be.
Well, let me ask you this. Then why can't Notre Dame have an automatic qualifier? No, let's talk about Notre Dame. Why can't they have it? If my argument is so flawed, then why can't Notre Dame have an automatic qualifying bid?
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your #1 source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.